Now, the first expression of Scorpio is stability. It's small wonder that Scorpio wants stability, and its first imperative is to create stability. It is one of the most, and perhaps sometimes the most, profound emotional signs. In some ways, its emotion for control is unrivaled in the zodiac. It wants to control things because that which is disturbing on an emotional level, it robs Scorpio of its confidence, its sense of well-being. If it doesn't have any sense of emotional clarity and stability, it can't operate very well. And so its first duty is to establish emotional stability. Now, emotional stability and physical stability are very closely linked. You're not going to be emotionally stable if you have insecurity around food or money or social appropriateness and so on. So this emotional need for stability is translated into something more tangible. And we begin with the, let's look at the overview anyway of the first 5 degrees. We move away from our beloved, secure past, motivated by curiosity for greater experience. And yet sharing nostalgic memories binds us back into our community, and we find ourselves building a more stable future by working with others in our group. Communal rituals both settle us into worldly life and deepen our access to the spirituality of passionate life force, and by this we come to the realization of the importance of that stability, which actually creates a greater sense of personal freedom. Now we have another sort of understanding, is that investing in stability, which seems to require involvement that robs us of freedom, nevertheless gives us a freedom which is of a different kind. It's freedom to feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, then you're not free. And Scorpio knows this deeply, intuitively. So it begins with this rather unusual sense of the first degree of Scorpio of a sightseeing bus. Not intuitively clear to us why Scorpio would be so associated with curiosity, having a look-see to see what's going on. But it makes total sense. If you arrive at a new place and you want to feel secure, then you look around, you see what there is to see. And by doing so, you receive information, you form opinions, you start to develop familiarity, and you push yourself, shall we say, introduce yourself into the environment. So on first arrival in a new place, the obvious thing to do is to look around. And the sightseeing bus, that's a really efficient way of doing that. You're told all the stories. You're shown all the best bits by someone who's guiding you in this. It's a good way to introduce yourself into a new scenario. Now, Scorpio 2, the broken bottle with the spilled perfume. This scent lingers long after the breaking of the bottle. And we see from this the sense of nostalgia, where the feeling sense of an event or a way of being lingers for a very long time afterwards. Our ability as people to recollect emotions from a very long time ago, early childhood quite often, this is noticeable, isn't it? It's a very noteworthy aspect of our species that we are actually nostalgic. And nostalgia, you can't really see how nostalgia can be an efficient mechanism for a person until you introduce the idea of community. That which binds a community together, several things, and we'll look at one or two more, but one of them is shared history. When you're meeting an old friend you haven't seen for a while that you knew 20, 30, 40 years ago or whatever, you're going to talk about that time because you share more history with this person than you do with your current friends. So you have a nostalgic conversation. You remember the perfume of those days. And it binds you into a closer relationship with this friend. And if you do that in many ways, many different friends, you will find that the community interaction, the community glue, that which pulls you together as those people who belong here, this depends upon the perfume of historical memories that you share with each other, but not with newcomers. So that's the second degree. The third degree is the house raising. And as I said, we'll talk about various ways to develop community involvement. Working together develops community involvement. And in this case, the new people that come into the community, if they work and they earn their salt and they share overcoming problems, they share getting tired, they share being uncomfortable, and they share food together, and they share the celebration and the triumph of a job well done. These are very powerful binding emotions. These are the emotions that eventually create nostalgia in the future. So working together is not only of practical benefit, where you can actually integrate new people into your community and become integrated into a new community that you've joined in a real way. People will forgive you all manner of eccentricities if you're a good worker, and they will do the same if you're actually sharer of nostalgic experiences from the past. And this is what binds a community together. It's putting up with people who you don't like. Sometimes, we don't like everyone in our community. We can put up with them. We like something about them, but we don't necessarily like them. And yet we would take care of them. We would do work for them, even if we don't like them sometimes, because they're members of the community, and we like the community. We need the community. We want the stability of the community. Now, the fourth degree of Scorpio within the expression of stability is the youth holding up a candle. And here we have yet another way in which the community becomes stabilized. We've looked at nostalgia. We've looked at working together. We're looking now at ritual, the youth holding up a candle. So a youth typically is promoting the spiritual expression of the community. We see this often in Christian churches, where a young boy is singing in the choir or swinging the incense. This is quite normal. And it creates a sense of ritual expression of spirituality. It's not necessarily spiritual. There are plenty of rituals that bind us together which are not spiritual. Well, perhaps they are spiritual to the participants, but I would say that supporting your local football team every Saturday is a ritual. And for me, it would not be a spiritual experience, but perhaps for others it is. And there are certain rituals we carry out which have definitely got a religious context, like Easter and Christmas and so on. But there are other rituals that are not specifically aligned with spirituality, such as in England, bonfire night, which is actually a copy of a very old spiritual tradition called Sabian, where you light fires around the 1st of November. And we've corrupted that into bonfire night, which is Guy Fawkes, an insignificant political figure of several hundred years ago. We've warped it. But Halloween actually is another one. It aligned at that same period, where ancient spiritual traditions have got embraced as community building rituals of the day, which are not known to be of spiritual importance. whatever their history might be. Now we come to the 5th degree of Scorpio, the massive rocky shore. So just think about that. There's this oceanic force of water, waves smashing up against the rocks, driven by gale force winds, but the cliff holds good. It's a massive rocky shoreline. It's strong, and it holds against the emotional ups and downs that the ocean represents. And that shoreline is the way things are done. We do things this way. This is the physical expression of our emotional commitment to bind together as a community and survive against turbulence, emotional turbulence, the ups and downs of history, economic well-being and depression and all the things that happen at some point in our lives. Every one of us will experience some oceanic challenge to our sense of well-being as a community, typically war, or nowadays climate change, or economic difficulties, and so on. And the massive rocky shoreline is that we pull together as a community and deal with stuff. When COVID came, we pulled together and we helped various categories, the children, the old people. We pulled together and we cared about people because they were an aspect of our community. This develops stability, which Scorpio needs.